adjusting volume. I seem to do that a lot, I'm afraid, but okay, here we go. Okay, so the final Star Wars movie in the Skywalker saga that was totally going to be a nine-part film series from the beginning. Lucas totally had this in mind, right? No, he didn't. No, no, no. Why would you think that? Um, okay, so I'm actually kind of happy to be done reviewing all nine of these Star Wars movies because I don't hate them. I actually do enjoy these movies for the most part. There are some low points. It's just that when you review a movie series that has nine films in it gets a little boring after a while because there were points where I would make an excuse to review something different because I wanted more variety. I didn't want to do just nine straight weeks of these movies, and all I can say is, Lord have mercy on me if I decide to review the entire Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween and Friday the 13th series, because those have like 12 million sequels over the course of 4 days. So, yeah. Um, okay. So, Rise of Skywalker, I think we know the plot. It's the finale to the sequel trilogy. I almost said prequel. Shame on you, Michael. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Anyway, so it's the final movie of the sequel trilogy, and the not rebellion of the series is fighting off the First Order, who seems to have a big player in their bullpen, the Emperor, who's somehow back from the dead. And I got a few things to say about that. Yeah, I like how I just went. I just had this very serious face, like I'm some parent that's about to really give his kid a smacking for doing something stupid. Um, so, and it's also about Ray finally becoming the Jedi, and I'll also talk about why I think it's weird that this movie was named Rise of Skywalker, since, well, I'll get to that. That's probably gonna be one of the last things I discuss. So I think we know the plot. The characters, honestly, the movie, the acting is good. The problem is none of the characters get any real development. It's just kind of like action scene, action scene, action scene. Ooh, here's an awesome badass moment. Let's focus on this. It's like the first two movies did a good job at trying to develop the characters, and Last Jedi really explored the personalities a little more. This one, because it's J.J. Abrams again, it just feels like a thrill ride with no real sense of diving into interesting ideas. The ideas are there, but they're not developed enough to be hard to read. It's like they're not developed enough to raise interesting questions, and they're also not developed enough for us to understand the story. Case in point, the return of Emperor Palpatine. Now, as we remember in The Last Jedi, the First Order leader Snoke got decapitated by Kylo Ren. So, yeah, it would be obvious that they would have gotten a new main villain that Kylo Ren was essentially the lapdog for. The problem I have with this is that I feel like the reason they went with Palpatine is that they were trying so hard to make this an epic climax to the series, and the movie just didn't work. Um, and I mentioned how the pacing was inconsistent and too fast for its own good. I feel like if they really wanted to bring back Palpatine, I guess it could have worked if they explained more about how he's a Force ghost and this ghost spirit is somehow been influencing the First Order the whole time. But no, it's like he's in some sort of deformed body or something. It's, I mean, they kind of did something like this with Voldemort in the Harry Potter series, where he's living off of a deformed body before eventually coming back to his full form. The only difference is that in the Harry Potter series, they develop the Voldemort character and show all the ways he's trying to come back. So when you see him in the fourth book, Return for Real, it makes sense and you understand it. And also, we clearly understand that we don't know if Voldemort's alive or dead in Harry Potter. We just assume he is. We don't have any real proof. But in Star Wars, we see the Emperor get tossed down a exhaust shaft or whatever, and Return of a Jedi, so he's clearly dead. And the problem with bringing him back is that it ruins the sacrifice and the meaning of Vader's actions at the end of Return of a Jedi. And it's not really explained very well. They're just saying, oh, he's back because evil somehow. And it's like maybe one or two lines of dialogue that barely go into any detail of explain. If it was like two run-on sentences explaining Palpatine's return, maybe I'd be okay with it. But it just seemed like a very wishy-washy, pathetic excuse to get a reaction out of the crowd because they couldn't think of any other villains, so let's just get Palpatine back. It was just lazy writing. Now, I know that in the novelization of this movie, they do explain a little more why Palpatine has returned. The problem is, this movie came out in December 2019. The novelization didn't come out until like a couple months ago, so great, you're trying to explain a movie flaw several months after it's been released. That to me just kind of shows how much the writing team screwed up in this case. And I don't know, it just felt like Palpatine's return didn't have a lot of dramatic weight to it because he was never mentioned in any other movies. And I just feel like the film is trying so hard to get to that climax that it's not really trying to build up or have a sense of escalation to the point when the final fight would have any meaning. It's trying it's trying really hard to be like Return of a Jedi. Now, the first movie in this trilogy, The Force Awakens, was kind of ripping off A New Hope, but the characters were entertaining enough and fun to get behind. The story was interesting and basic, and it was a fine way to introduce the trilogy. Things were kind of falling into place. There were things set up that we expected to be developed in the sequel, in the rest of the trilogy. And some of that is touched upon in Last Jedi, but in this one, they just go straight into the story without any care or concern with what the other films built up. You know, reading this, it's just, I just feel like they were trying so hard to get to the climactic spectacle that they didn't really bother trying to build anything up. And I know I've said that twice now, but hey, I'm building up the sense of annoyance and frustration I have more than the movie built up to its so-called climax. Um, Ian McDiarmid as the Emperor, I mean, despite the fact that it's ridiculous and nonsensical for him to be in the movie, I do like his performance. It's very well done. He is really creepy and really scary, and he's mostly kept in the shadows. And I mean, I do like the idea that he uses a his powers as lightning bolt thingies to help the First Order fleet. I mean, I think it's silly but awesome at the same time, you know? Um I I do feel like that even though this movie ends with Rey saying she's Rey Skywalker, I don't really see how that fits with the title because Rise of Skywalker, I mean, Luke's dead, Leia's dead. So I mean, Rey really only took the surname because she had nothing left at that point. So I don't really see what the point of the title is. And if anyone comes across this video and would care to explain why the title fits with the story we're seeing, that would be fine. Because I mean, The Force Awakens made sense because the Force was coming back and was coming back for a new generation with Rey. Last Jedi because Luke was essentially the last Jedi. Rise of Skywalker. Which Skywalker is rising? What? You know? Um. I mean, were there good things in this movie? I mean, the visual effects, and like I said, even though the actors were given very little to work with, they did a great job of what they were given. I just feel like for for a movie that was hyped up as the final Star Wars film, which bullshit. Um, I just don't think that this movie. I feel like if they had worked on it more and had a director that knew how to do character development and building up storylines better, I think this would have turned out more strong. It would have been more positive. Because I mean, I've seen reviews, and it was kind of mixed. I mean, people were split on whether this was a good movie or not. Yeah, imagine that, a Star Wars movie being divisive. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, even with I mean, the reason why the Return of a Jedi worked was because it was built up by the other movies and worked with the foundation from Empire and A New Hope. So when the Emperor dies and Vader redeems himself, it means something. And with Revenge of a Sith, it connected the prequels to the original trilogy. Here, it doesn't really build up to anything significant. It's just kind of forced. It's forced and lazy because the writers couldn't think of anything. So, yeah, yeah, I wasn't sure what to think of this movie when I first saw it, but yeah, this was definitely a lackluster way to end the series. I'm pretty sure they're going to come up with another Star Wars series within the Skywalker storyline or whatever, but until that comes, I guess we'll see. Personally, I think we're going to have more stories of Daisy Ridley in like the next decade or something, but well, now that I've probably gotten a few people ready to crucify me for being strong on this movie, I'm actually surprised that I was as hard on the movie as I was. I wasn't. I kind of felt indifferent, but I don't know. It's just the more I think about the movie, the more I feel like it was a waste of time. But anyway, so that was my review for this week. My cover on Monday will be the title track for The River by Bruce Springsteen, and next week, I'll be reviewing an album that's a far superior piece of work than this will ever be. So, man, I'm really surprised at how mad I am. It's just, I don't know. I really shouldn't be getting this frustrated over a movie that's relatively inoffensive. But, well, I'll see you guys later. Take care.